How did you get into dog training?
So I had a little Jack Russell, got him when I was in my early 20s, and Spaniel turned round, jumps on him, like looks like it mauled him, just left a little graze on his shoulder.
Yeah.
I come home all traumatized, like, oh, my little baby's just been hurt. So I was like,
let's talk about NEPOPO. What is NEPOPO?
NEPOPO is, see if I can get this right, it is...
Why is the concept of negative reinforcement shunned in the pet world? It's a dirty word, right?
In the pet world, it's not so much. It's in the dog world. If you look and say, like, look at horses, you're gonna move a horse with your legs by using pressure release.
And I called her out on it, and she said, "Yeah, but horses, it's different." And I said, "But it's not. If you've got a problem with negative reinforcement, you've got a problem with negative reinforcement."
A horse is a prey animal, and a dog is a predator. So one of them is this tough killer, and the other one is a flight animal.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, we can use negative reinforcement with the flight animal. That's fine.
The big shit house.
Yeah, but with the predator, no, treat them like a little fluffy bunny. They're my little fur baby, so we can't do that.
Yeah. When you're working with one-to-one pet clients, what do you find yourself repeating over and over again?
Food drive. Sometimes he eats it, other times he doesn't.
Yep.
And I was like, well, how's he got good food drive? And they're like, well, he loves cheese and he loves chicken.
Yeah.
So
I don't think people realise just how little pressure you'd need to use and progress you would make if your dog was taking fingers off for them. This week on Caffeine Canines, I am joined by my guest Andrew Lang, who is a NEPOPO Gold, a fellow business owner and dog behaviour and rehabilitation expert. We talk about a lot of everyday dog training in this episode, so it's perfect for owners that are just looking to see improvements in their dog's behaviour. A chat I thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm sure you will as well. See you there.
They get cheekier as they get older.
Your kids?
Yeah.
How old are they?
2 and 4.
And they're cheeky fuckers.
No, not yet.
How many dogs do you have?
4. Yeah, 4.
Where'd you get Bruce?
Where did they get him?
Yeah.
He was a client on the...
Was he?
Yeah, and they couldn't cope with him anymore. So we had a little Jack Russell that died, little Floyd, and he died like about a month before, and then he come available. And the owner said to me, I'm going to send him to an American Bulldog rescue. Do you want to try and help me out? And I was like, well, I think we've got a space in our house, so we'll take him as a temporary thing to like rehome him somewhere. And then he just got more and more
What
issues
did he come with?
Dog reactivity. Yeah.
Aggression or just reactive? Like
Just
frustrated?
reactive, yeah, just reactive. He'd been, as a young pup, like she used to send me videos of him as a young pup, and he'd just be getting bullied all the time off lead with like, you know, different like dogs and stuff. We'd be meeting dogs in the woods and he'd be bullying them and knocking them about and stuff, so...
Throwing his big body weight around.
Yeah, so I think when he sort of come of age where he was like, say, 18 months, which is quite typical, he just become a little bit more sort of mature, strong and confident, and from that, I think he just started throwing his own weight around. So he got into a couple of altercations with a couple of dogs and made a mess of one of them.
Did he?
I think that scared him, yeah. So, yeah.
Well, he made a mess of them.
Yeah, made a mess of a dog. Something like £1,000 worth of damage in the vet.
Big Bruce.
Yeah. It's only a schnauzer.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. He picked his fight.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
How did you get into dog training?
So I had a little Jack Russell, got him when I was in my early 20s, and took him to the park for one of his first walks. He met a Springer Spaniel. Springer Spaniel was playing with the ball. He started barking at it, turned around and attacked him. And I got
your Jack Russell attacked the Spaniel?
No, my Jack Russell was barking at the Spaniel.
Right, okay.
The Spaniel, so he was only, say, like 12 weeks old. Spaniel turned round, jumps on him, like looks like it mauled him, just left a little graze on his shoulder.
Yeah.
I come home all traumatized, like, oh, my little baby's just been hurt. So I was like, you know, all like, and then I got obsessed with wanting to learn about behaviour and know why he'd been attacked and what had gone on. Like, looking back at it now, he shouldn't have been off lead. I was like one of them stupid owners who just let my dog go into the park and hope for the best type of thing. So,
did you in that moment blame the? Did you ever go at the Spaniel's owner as well?
I blame the Spaniel.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back and beat her up the next day.
Even though probably on you a little bit. Is that tree too much? Is that tree too much in your?
I feel like I'm in Predator.
Yeah. All right. I'll move the tree right there.
Yeah, so I just got obsessed, I think, from that point of, like, learning about dog behaviour, and I was buying books, watching TV shows.
Who are your icons? Like, who did you like to learn from early doors?
Caesar Milan for the first one, yeah.
He gets a hard time to Caesar, doesn't he?
He does, yeah, but he's not a dog trainer at the end of the day, is he?
No, he's just some bloke.
Yeah, he's just some bloke.
I always say about Caesar Milan, I'm like, I said it we did a podcast yesterday, but I said exactly the same thing. I'm like, how many people out there have got like a ranch of like 100 rescue dogs that are all just getting on fine.
Yeah.
Like, until you've got that, just shut your fucking gob on
absolutely.
on the matter, I think.
It's different animals as well. He's got loads of different animals there, and he works on the simple principles of just raising an animal of rules, boundaries, and limits, giving them exercise, discipline, affection. It's all like his ethos, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a big influence.
Fulfill them, discipline them.
Yeah.
Who else?
So it was big on him for quite a while, and then I started studying into a lot of like the wolf psychology and looking into that quite a bit. Studied David Michu, a lot of people looked at Sean Ellis. We even had Sean Ellis up to come and do a seminar at one point. So I looked into a lot of that, but I didn't really go into the training side till late on. So only like sort of in the last, say, 5-6 years that I've gone more into the training side. And then once I did, I went like full on Leerberg, like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Looked a lot into Michael Ellis, Tyler Muto, watched a lot of his stuff, Forrest Mickey. Got a couple of like my own mentors. So I employed Brent Dry from Australia.
Mm-hmm.
He's been on the Canine Paradigm a few times. I had him as my personal mentor, and I got Tyler Muto to do loads of like Skype work with me, so I could improve the training side of it.
Nice.
And then did a little bit with Duke Ferguson as well, and that's kind of what got me into the NEPOPO side of it.
Yep.
So looking into that.
Let's talk about NEPOPO. What is NEPOPO?
NEPOPO is, see if I can get this right, it is a training system that creates a dog that does behaviours on cue of heart and soul.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to memorise that to do the tests.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So, so I just seen it as a thing. NEPOPO just kept coming up online. I'd seen it from Duke Ferguson. There was a girl on Facebook called Lauren Turner who was like massively into it. She'd done all their silver and gold. Just got speaking to a few people, and then they announced it doing the last silver school ever. So they were going to do this like sort of like multiple sessions of like you come in and do a week of silver, and then we tried to book in, and the only one that they had spaces left on was the very last week of ever doing silver school.
Mm-hmm.
So I booked to go on that, and then once you've done silver you've got to do gold, haven't you? But it's a long story, but it was a bit of a nightmare doing the silver school, because I got over there, went with my missus down to London to do some to have like a little bit of a weekend where we were just like going and having a little bit of a chill before I flew from Heathrow.
Yep.
And she broke her ankle like 6 hours before the flight. So I had to go to A&E there all night. I had to leave our hotel room with an hour left before the flight. Got over to Missouri. I hadn't had sleep in about 42 hours, something like that. And then when I got over there, I got COVID as soon as I got over there.
No, you're joking.
So we booked me and another trainer. Ryan Spinks, who I was talking about before, me and him had booked 6 days, like a 6-day holiday before we went to, because we were over in America.
Yeah.
And I had to spend the 6-day holiday in the hotel room.
Oh.
And then missed the start of the course. Yeah, I missed the first couple of days of it. Yeah. So it was quite tough. When I finally got in it, I was massively overwhelmed and didn't know what to do, and just had to scrape through the best I could and try and pass it.
Can you give the general like premise of NEPOPO or NEPOPO? Like, what's the concept? There's obviously the element of having reliability over the dog, but maintaining good attitude.
Yeah.
What does NEPOPO stand for?
Negative, positive. So,
and why?
An easier way of describing it would be pressure, release, reward.
Yep.
So when you're training and you're actually in the moment of training, you try to get the dog to be resilient and strong with pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd use pressure to make the behaviour happen first.
Yep.
And you incrementally do that so it works over time. So you're not just going in with a lot of pressure straight away. So you build the pressure. So a way that you would do it is you would teach a dog how to do, like, say, a sit and using a learn, using food. Once you know how to do the behaviour, you would then use pressure. So you use pressure first, lead them into the behaviour, asking them to sit.
Yep.
So it'd be pressure first, then you would ask them to do the behaviour, and then you do pressure with the command, and then you would do pressure then command. So you're incrementally bringing in this pressure to get them strong with it. So it actually means when you're doing NEPOPO, it's use pressure released to a reward. Mm-hmm. So it's two positives to one negative.
Yep.
But the negative is a good thing, where the dog will see it as sort of like a power, because when you're using that negative initially, it's going to be turning off to a pressure release. I say like taking a stone out your shoe, or putting your seatbelt on when the bell's going off, or something like that. Why
is the concept of negative reinforcement shunned in the pet world, and it's a dirty word, right?
Well, it's to correct you a little bit there. In the pet world, it's not so much. It's in the dog world,
Right.
because if you look and say look at horses,
Yeah.
you're gonna move a horse with your legs by using pressure release.
Yep.
You're gonna use a reins by using pressure release. If you have to get them in a horse box, you use pressure release.
Yep.
So it's just negative reinforcement, and I think it's frowned upon because it's probably been misused over the years.
With horses or dogs or everything.
Well, with dogs, but with horses, it's just a done thing.
Yes, yeah, no one really bats an eyelid. I had a lady once comment on one of my reels about a slip collar, and I had a little peek on her profile, and she's an avid horse rider, and she's using spurs and the fucking big head halty, the reins, and I called her out on it, and she said, yeah, but horses, it's different. And I said, but it's not. If you've got a problem with negative reinforcement, you've got a problem with negative reinforcement. You can't be... And she said, but there's no other way to do it, and, you know, we got into this, like, bit of to and fro, but that's the hypocrisy that's knocking about, isn't it?
I think the crazy thing also is that a horse is a prey animal and a dog is a predator. So one of them is this tough killer and the other one is a flight animal.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, we can use negative reinforcement with the flight animal. That's fine.
The big shit house.
Yeah, but with the predator, no, treat them like a little fluffy bunny. They're my little fur baby, so we can't do that to them.
A lot of e-collars are used in NEPOPO, is that fair to say?
Yeah.
How often are you using e-collars with your pet dog?
Not that much.
Why?
Yeah. Because I don't feel like I need to, and it just doesn't sort of fit the client for what I'm doing. I think as well, they can sometimes be quite a hard sell, and what I struggle with, and I think this is something that you do really well, is I struggle with teaching owners how to use them and getting them to use an e-collar when it's actually needed. So, for instance, if you're using it for recall, and yet you train it on low levels, but when the environment gets a little bit more sort of taxing for the dog, you have to go up on the levels, and sometimes you have to go a little bit higher on the levels where it's going to be really uncomfortable for the dog. And I think that's what you struggle with the owners, where they're not prepared to actually alter that level to the environment that they're in. They're like, oh, I'm going to hurt my dog.
And if you hang around at low levels and then put the dog in that arousing environment that they're going to fail in, you end up NEPOPOing them into the unwanted behaviour, right?
Yeah. So they're like, chase a squirrel harder.
Yeah. It is a tough sell to a degree. I get pissed off when people say that we're going to linger around on the low level forever and dogs being recalled on level 8 and things like that. The whole point of utilising an e-collar is you don't need to use the e-collar because the dog has been through the whole process, right? So I saw someone the other day... bump into them. I know them personally, and they were training their dog on a long line and an e-collar, and they've been at it for 4 months, still on the lower levels. And she's just practicing low level, not taking that jump to the point that the dog goes, okay, I want to avoid this now, and I need to get back as quick as I possibly fucking can. And I'm speaking more openly that, okay, sometimes we have to put the dog through momentary discomfort in order to achieve the desired results that we want and overcome certain unwanted behaviours that aren't going to be addressed otherwise. And even when quote-unquote balanced dog trainers say that the e-collar never goes to a level that becomes aversive, when we then need to actually utilise an e-collar to get use it to the degree it can be used and reliably, and we have to put the dog through that aversive level, the rhetoric and shit that's spread online that it's low level makes us all look like because of that's not how an e-collar works at all. I think because if we only ever needed that low level, we'll just use a whistle. What, creating a positive association. All right, just use a whistle then. You don't need the e-collar. The whole point is to get to aversion. So I've got a bit of a gripe with that, and to piggyback on your point about the hard sells of client, this is why I'm so now open about it on social media and things like that. Like pretty much all my clients today have been e-collar clients. You've just come in on the back end of a small e-collar class, and 2 dogs that started 4 weeks ago are now going to be off lead pretty much as much as they possibly can be. So I'm happy to speak up for that because we're getting those sorts of results.
It's definitely something I need to do more of, because I don't really advertise it. I've done little videos in the past, but I don't completely hide away, but I'm just a bit like,
Sometimes it's not worth the heat you can end up picking up on the back end of it, right?
Yeah.
Fortunately, I'm a massive gobshite and I'll just come back at him with venom.
Yeah, and I think that's me, is that I just can't be doing with the conflict, where I just want to try and do my job, do the best I can for clients. I'm very open with talking about e-collars when I do my own workshops and I'm doing one-to-one work with people, but when it's online, it's just, there's so many people who are keyboard warriors and just want to fight with people online. I haven't got the time to do that because I'm just too busy trying to enjoy my life.
Yeah.
I don't want to be fighting with people. So
yeah, there's plenty out there. Anyone that now does comment on our stuff, there's usually a fake name or like no name and no profile picture.
Yeah.
The people that aren't, they're sat in their mum's basement, fucking spaffing off over whatever they want, Warhammer or whatever.
Just spaffing off.
Just spaffing off over Warhammer. A question for you. When you're working with one-to-one pet clients, what do you find yourself repeating over and over again? Or what sort of messages are you giving to clients?
What am I repeating over and over again?
Yeah.
Food drive.
Okay, yeah, nice. Yeah. I like that one.
Yeah.
Hit me.
Oh, God, it's one of them real difficult things that I find when I'm talking with clients, because, I mean, we had I think it was yesterday, my last client yesterday, and they were talking about how their dog's got really good food drive. So I said, what's your dog's food drive like? And they said, it's really, really good. So can I use my own food? Can I test it? I'm just going to throw food around the room and just see how the dog responds to it. So the dog's going over to me food and just leaving the food, and I'm like, okay, the dog's food drive's not that good. Tell me how you feed the dog. And they're like, well, he's, we put his bowl down, we put his bowl in his little room when he goes, when we go to work, and his bowl stays there, and sometimes he eats it, other times he doesn't. Yep. And I was like, well, how's he got good food drive? And they're like, well, he loves cheese and he loves chicken.
Yeah.
So trying to get them from like using all these high value foods and get them onto existential feeding, it's really, really difficult, I find. And people, you're almost talking to people's heart, and they're like, no, I can't not feed my dog. He's gonna starve, etc. So
I find people are actually more comfortable to acutely punish their dog out of frustration in the moment than strategically utilize existential food, because of the guilt they feel potentially from that is elongated over a longer period of time, but are happy to on a slip or prong collar in that moment because the dog reacting has actually pissed them off. And then I say, no, that's not fair on the dog. We need to be strategic, not like reactive, because that's all our dog is being. So
it's a difficult one. I found it's easier if I'm sort of a little bit harsh. So I give them like two ways of doing it. One is that they feed. I give them three ways. So you can do half and half. You can give it where you feed them through training.
Yep.
Existential feeding, or if you insist that you want to use a food bowl, put the food bowl down, they get a second, just like you would have box feeding.
Yeah.
Put the food down for a second. If they come to the bowl and they don't take the food, just to pick it up straight when it's gone.
Yep.
And if you want to, give them 3 chances instead of 2 chances, or if you feeding them once, give them 2 chances instead of 1.
Yeah.
And I find if you just talk to them like that and not say, give them a few minutes, give them 5 minutes to eat it or whatever, I'm like, as soon as you walk away, just take it straight up. And if they walk away halfway through the meal, take it straight up again.
Yep. I don't think people realise just how little pressure you'd need to use and progress you would make if your dog was taking fingers off all their existential food.
Yeah.
Like the amount you can get done with a clicker and a genuine amazing food drive is insane.
Yes, absolutely.
And I've got this foster to adopt dog with us at the moment, right? And because there's no time limit on her, it's like she can go in 2 months, she can go in 6 months, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
All I've done is built food drive, not done any formal training yet.
Lovely, yeah.
But we started whistle recall today, and she is sharp, and it'll fix a lot of issues. And I overlay the e-collar on top of that in place with a really good food drive and a marker. Like, the amount of pressure I'd have to use is minimal.
Yes.
And I'm going to NEPOPO everything, but it's going to be minimal, and I'm going to keep the dog's attitude up the whole time, just because I've been really patient and just been like, let's just build the food drive. I actually fed her out of a bowl twice a day, just like you said, lifting, gone. If she wasn't touching it, she probably went 2 days with like not touching it at all. Like, she's like environmentally shit show.
Yeah.
That's on her. Feeding like a really high calorie food, so there's not much volume of it. And then I actually started feeding her out of the treat and train.
Oh, cool, yeah.
And just like building it, they get a bit frustrated over it and they get a bit like wound up. So I built a bit of that. Then I fed her on a treat and train just out of reach when she was on a bungee back tie.
Oh, wow. Clever.
So then she was like getting really, and then I just
time to work for it, yeah.
Yep. And then once we did like a week of that, and a food drive was like skyrocketed, whistle jackpot, I'm on day 3 of that, and now she's just sharp as the whistle. Now I'm going to overlay the e-collar. So the 90% of the work has been done in building the food drive to create this really nice recall.
There you go.
Whereas like 3 or 4 reps of then whistle has just been the icing on the cake. But,
yes. I did exactly the same with Bruce.
But people are like trying to blow the whistle 500 times. Whereas actually, what does Bart say? If there's not boiling water, you can't cook spaghetti, right? So.
Yes, yeah.
What else are you telling pet dog clients?
What else am I telling them? So you find, I mean, I find a lot of it is about like relationship with them as well. So, I mean, everybody, I think I've seen this in one of your videos actually, where you're saying about relationship isn't just all about like, throwing a ball for them and playing tug. It's also about your rules and boundaries, etc.
Yep.
So I find a lot of that is like the foundation of what needs to happen first, because I can't really progress them if I take that dog away and do like a week's work of it or do a board and train with it or anything like that. I can't progress that dog if I'm going to give it back to them and give them instructions and teach them how to do things if they haven't got that strong relationship in the first place.
Yep.
So I find that is like something that like I try to focus on a lot from the very early stages with them, is making sure that they understand that they can use some type of relationship structure with the dog that's going to help their behaviour problems. And I'll find a lot that like we build that by just doing really small like little spatial pressure games with them, where we teach them like food, like we do a thing called food claiming, where you hold food in your hand and you get the dog to move away from it and you feed them for it.
Is that a Tyler thing?
Yeah, it's a Tyler Muto thing, yeah. And then you put food on the floor and then you claim the space of the food, and it teaches them how to use spatial pressure with the dog, where the dog actually gets rewarded for each time. So if the dog learns to relinquish control to something, it gets fed in the position of relinquishing control.
Yep.
So not only does it respond to spatial pressure, it also responds to having a positive and learning its NEPOPO again, learning where its advantage is. So find that, working on relationship and making sure that they're giving the dog the right amount of exercise, etc. Just all your basic stuff before we can get to the actual behaviour problems themselves.
Nice. Tell us about the dog this week that you've had in to train with you.
This week, I haven't had a dog in this week. I've had one-to-one clients every hour of every day.
Okay, tell us about your favourite session that you had this week.
Oh my God, Jacob, that's a hard one. A white German Shepherd called Casper, whose head was
original.
So his head's just all over the place, and we had to use pressure to actually get some focus out of him.
Yep.
So food wasn't working. We had him in a stable environment, so his head's just looking everywhere. Typical white German Shepherd.
Leaking and squeaking.
Leaking all the time, yeah. So we did placement work with him to try and build some stability and try and build some impulse control. And we had to skip loads of it. So when I teach placement, I teach it with a lot of positive reinforcement to start. Create what we call a magnet to the bed.
Yep.
Create all that, and then at the end of it, I will start using pressure, where I'll say to them, no, you can't leave the bed, and use a no or an or whatever I'm going to use with the dog. But we had to skip a lot of the early stages and go straight to that to get some focus out of him. And the change in him in the one session was incredible, and the owners went away like singing and wanting to book onto one of our courses.
Nice.
A foundation course that we do, which is like a 5-day course where they come in and do similar to your Kickstarter, where it's like placement, recall, lead control, all that stuff.
What sort of breeds do you find yourself mostly working with?
Seen a lot of Dachshunds.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Dachshunds. A lot of collies at the minute. Working cockers.
Any breed you won't touch, won't work with?
Won't touch or don't like.
Either or.
I don't like working with chow chows.
Oh, mate, we've had one this week, but he was actually all right.
Right.
But there's always a red flag over a chow chow, isn't there?
Yeah.
They don't like being told what to do.
Yeah, and then I suppose as well, like although they work amazing for you, I tend to, if I can, try and if I get like a Malian or something, I'll try and push it onto someone who's more into the sport work with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So get more German Shepherds, but
I don't really like working with a pet Mali at all. Just don't feel right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
like teaching someone, to drive a Ferrari around town at 20 miles an hour. It's a fucking age-old catch-22, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a tricky one, really.
All dogs are a low driver, hard to work with, I think, because you struggle to motivate them.
Yeah. So when a client says to me, something that triggers me is when they say my dog doesn't have any food drive. And I'm like, well, they fucking do, because they'd be dead if they don't. Have you ever experienced a dog that truly is like, nah,
Yeah, we did. We had one in, like a little terrier cross, and he come in. He spent like a month with us, and
Yeah.
we just tried every way possible to get food drive, and really struggled. We really,
Really?
really struggled. Yeah, even to this day, he's better, but we just never really got it there. So we found his reward was affection. So if we did recall with him, we'd recall him in and just make a massive fuss of him, and it really worked for him. And we got him in the end. He lives out in Wales, but we got him in the end where he was quite dog reactive on and off lead, but he now just goes on big walks and big adventures. He's off lead, running around all the time.
What type of terrier was he?
And recalls every time. He's from like, I'm going to lie here and say this is like Romania or something like that. He was some mixed terrier. I don't think they ever got him DNA tested.
Yeah, I gotcha.
He was kind of like one of them scruffy, tall dogs that you'd see in a movie. That's
Yeah. What type of reactivity do we see the most?
Fear reactivity, I think. Yeah.
Like unsure. Go away, barking.
Yes, that's a good. I'd say 80% of the clients we see.
Yes, probably same. Why are this like? Why is there a pandemic of fear reactive dogs?
And there definitely is a pandemic of fear reactive dogs. Really
I think
is.
so.
I think
Dogs are getting like more shithousey, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like constantly scared of their own shadow. I've got my theories, which go on.
I'll be interested in yours. Genetics play a part, I think.
Yeah.
Dogs over socialising them, doing too much of them young on, not doing enough. Just doing the wrong thing. I find that like you'll be in a consultation with somebody and you'll talk to them about like what they've done with their dog, and they'll be like, "Oh, we took him to all the cafes, and we had him in a towel meeting people, and people were coming up and stroking him and stuff like that." So I think genetics play a part. Especially I think we've seen it with the XL bullies and the XL bully ban there. When we started doing workshops and trying to help people out with the XL bullies, I found a lot of them. You found the ones that were a little bit unhinged, and you could see it just by the behaviour and see them around their owner. It was a lot to do with like the colour of them and different eye colours, etc. So rather than breeding them for temperament, you were breeding them more for the look of them. So I found that to be a thing. So I don't know whether that's happening more now with different breeds that you've got. And what's your theory on it?
I think all of those are definitely a massive factor, if not majority factors. Is just like we're getting greedy with breeding. People obviously breeding for looks and caring less about temperament. Yeah. And they're kind of just, I know plenty of people that have bred dogs that they should never have even thought about breeding. Yeah. Right, and they've gone and had 2-3 litters. It's crazy. Yeah. I think we are starting to think that dogs are very fragile. Yeah. And when we raise them, we coddle them so much. I'm not even talking about spoiling them or giving them an amazing life. I'm talking about literally thinking our dog is fragile and made of glass. Yeah. So much so that they grow up and become an adult thinking they're made of glass. Yeah. Right? So the amount of owners I see that the dog won't walk through a puddle. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, right, you're going through the fucking puddle. We're going to go through 20 times. And until you're all right with it, like, that's fine. It's not going to kill my dog. Yeah. Unless you've got like a genetic mess of a dog that is going to like... And it's about reading it, is going to be traumatized by going through a puddle, which I would suggest would be a tiny, tiny fraction of dogs. Yeah. Get the dog through the fucking puddle. Yeah. If your dog doesn't want to be picked up, right, you're getting picked up and I'm going to hold you under the belly and I'm going to put you in the crate. Yeah. Right, and where there's so little quote-unquote compulsion, like compelling a dog to do things, yes, that I think they grow up thinking they're made of glass because of we're all scaremongered into thinking we're going to either traumatize our dog, scar our dog, ruin our relationship, and whatever it may be. Yeah, right? That's
a really good point, yeah.
So I feel like there's an element of that with all the loudmouths online saying that you can never do X, Y, and Z with a dog. Yeah. And then it's scaring everyday dog owners into not letting their dogs just be a dog.
Yeah. And I think you've got all the force-free trainers out there who have a very loud mouth as well.
Yeah.
And they are really, really pushing their agenda, and how like the other communities are doing it wrong, etc. So I think when that's out there, like we've just got one on the Wirral where I'm from. They've got a group that they've set up. I can't remember the name. Something like Ethical Dog Trainers Wirral. Yeah, and it's just full of force-free people, I think. Yeah, and they're just like recommending all like the positive only force-free trainers on there.
It becomes a slagging off fest, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's just something I've always hated.
But the thing is, the arguments are maybe from their point of view, sincere. And if you're hearing them and you didn't know any better, of course you're going to go, oh yeah, of course I don't want to scar my dog. Of course I don't want to traumatize. Of course I don't want to ruin our relationship.
Yeah.
Right? But if you've got a solid dog that, you know, is well bred, that you can use a little bit of pressure, a little bit of, you have to do this.
Yes.
Because of it's inevitable that they will have to do something in their life that they don't want to. And unless they have been prepared for that,
Yeah.
by being told as a puppy, sometimes you have to do something even though you don't want to do it,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to have a fucking meltdown when they eventually come around to doing it.
Yeah.
So when we live in this vacuum of pressure, I think it fucks dogs up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of pressure is inevitable.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm such a big fan of NEPOPO.
Yeah.
Turning off pressure is such a good skill to have in a dog.
Absolutely.
I felt pressure before. I felt this type of pressure before. I fucking overcome it.
Yeah.
Because it's the same for us.
And I think what that helps a dog with in their life is just anything that's a pressure.
Yes.
It's like if a big bus is going past, so
Yes.
like, okay, I understand how to get out of trouble.
Yeah, and stress.
We get cockapoos into us. I name this breed because it's something I'm frequently seeing where they'll have been to a force-free trainer for the first year of their life, and because they've taught them that absolutely no pressure is not, they can't even say no to the dog. It's like it's a taboo word to use is no.
Yep.
When they come to us and we start using little small bits of pressure with the dog, they completely melt.
Yeah.
And they just don't know how to get through, and you have to go super, super slow. And the money they've spent with training before, they have to, spend, a good amount with us because we've just got to do the job really, really slow. It's weirdly, I see him on yesterday, a collie, and they didn't know the history. It had been in a home for the first year, then they got it 5 months ago, so it's 15 months old, this dog, and they said that they'd had a trainer out. The trainer had used a slip lead and gave it a couple of wallops, corrections, and the dog had gone into like shutdown.
Yeah.
So I showed them how to do some bits of lure work, a little bit of heel work, and just showed them a little bit of food because I wanted to try and get them on board and instill some confidence in them and get them things that they liked doing, because he really didn't like how it was done with the previous trainer. And then we went out to do a walk, and they had it on what looked like a pull collar. It's one of them, I think it's like an Easy Dog or something, but it looks like one of them Billy Bullos.
Yeah.
So I was explaining how it's like an agitation collar, and that's actually going to make the problem worse. So we switched to a slip lead, and I did a little bit of work with the dog, so I was like going back and forth, doing 180-degree turns, and we were just staying on the drive and doing a little bit there. And after about like 3 minutes of me doing it, the dog actually shut down. The dog was like literally on the floor, and it was like shaking on the floor. It never had any pressure. And I said to them, this has either had like something, it's been through some type of trauma with a slip lead maybe, and it's bringing the association back in, or potentially that it's only ever like had force-free methods, and as soon as you're bringing something in like this other guy has, which is slightly, well, he's used it aversively straight away, but as soon as you bring that in and start showing it, the dog's like, I can't handle this, so I'm just going to go into shutdown mode.
And that's Popo Nay. Positive, suddenly, don't fucking do that.
Yeah.
And dogs don't like that.
Yeah.
I see a lot of sport dog trainers train Popo Nay, right? And when they then eventually have to correct the dog at high level for not outing or the call off or anything, fucks up the next 2 months of training because of pressure was never instilled into the learning phases of training, right? And we have to do it to pet dogs all the time. We tiptoe around them for a year, like you said. We go to a couple of dog trainers that maybe are just utilising food or perhaps one or two of the quadrants. And then suddenly we go, this isn't working. We go to then probably more compulsion-based trainer that then goes and fucking takes the dog's head off. And then that disparity between feedback and communication just like not only confuses the dog, but it's going to shut them down, right?
It's too much, isn't it?
Yeah. But then what I then find difficult to explain to clients, or better at recently, is that is why we should use a bit of pressure in the learning phases to prepare us for later on when we inevitably have to use it, right?
Yeah.
So we don't want to use an e-collar when the dog is like really fucked up and is goners, to then use it as a hammer to then stop an unwanted behaviour.
Yeah.
I'd rather use it on a dog that we don't need to use it yet, to prepare us in case we need to use it, and then never use it, but convincing that owner that utilising pressure sooner rather than later, even if that in that moment their dog doesn't need it, is a difficult conversation, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh yeah, my dog can heel on a lead with a food lure just for fucking like 3 miles, like we're fine.
Yeah.
But when X, Y, or Z comes along, we have to teach him the concept of pressure. Otherwise, if a dog comes along and then we have no choice but to say, hey, cut the shit,
Yeah.
but he's never been introduced to it, then he's going to become that border collie. Or what was it, border collie you just described?
Border collie, yeah. He's a border collie crossed with, I think the DNA testing he did say, I think there was Aussie Shepherd in there, and then a couple of other breeds. I'm sure like there was a boxer or something in there.
We've had a cattle dog in.
Sorry.
I've never had an Australian, was it a cattle dog? Aussie cattle dog?
Yeah,
Those fucking square.
Yeah.
You ever had one in?
I don't think so, no. Seen a lot of dogs in the time we've been doing this, so.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
I've had a couple of Kelpies.
Yeah, me too.
I've not ever had an Australian cattle dog. I've had a few Australian Shepherds, obviously fucking 1,000,001 border collies.
I've seen a trend with collies at the minute though, where like we've got one at the minute, Winston, and he's a beautiful dog. He's got blue eyes, but like at 5-6 months, he's like extremely reactive, and it's taking time. We're having to do a lot of counter conditioning work with him, because I mean he's come of age where we're now using pressure etc. with him, but it just doesn't work with him. He just goes back at it all day. Just cars, people, anything. Cars, people, dogs, everything. So his triggers, if you try and take him on a walk, he's at every person, he's at every vehicle he sees, and he's at every dog he sees. So we're literally just trying to get out of the close with him.
Is it like a frustration thing or just a...
It's fear activity with him.
Right.
Yeah. But, so it's a lot of counter conditioning with him. Loads of it. Yeah.
That's tricky, isn't it? When you have to like start off the starting blocks with counter conditioning, trying to make something that's already bad to the dog and they're 5-6 months old. And
you're going back to the old struggle versus reward, struggle versus hope, and it's hard to get that dynamic right. I think we put a video on our Instagram recently where we had him. A trigger for him was obviously like these two guys that were up ladders and trying to chop trees down, like two tree surgeons, right in front of his house. Yeah. And he did well with that. But then you'd take him down the road and he'd see like a motorbike go
fresh
past.
Environment. It's just like a little reset button.
So we're just having to like break it down and make sure that like every little environment, we're conditioning him to the environment. He's food driven, which is good.
Yeah.
He's got loads of food drive.
At what point do you consider like a punishment e-collar protocol?
We haven't brought an e-collar in with him yet. But we're now able to use corrections with him to stop him doing stuff. Yeah. We've trained him to the point where we actually can, and he's listening to it. Yeah. So we're having to use both because you have to be, and this is I think one of the big problems in training is, and with pet owners is they live in a grey area for most of their life. They're never black and white with the dog. So you have to, when you get to that stage where you can correct and he's listening to it and he understands what it is, it's at that point where we can be completely, if you like, in one sense, white with giving the food and you're making that part of it work, and then just when you're going to use the corrections, you're going to be going to the other part of it where you're saying to him, this is black, this is right, and this is wrong. So it's working. It's just it's a slow burner, this one. Yeah. And I think it's genetics of that dog. Then blue eyes, I was like, straight away, I was like, yeah. Then blue eyes, and he's just looking the whole time, and he's just ready to just like pop at anything. Yeah.
Sprawled out.
Yeah. He can come to my classes now though, and he's staying engaged to the owner. Yeah.
Oh, is he?
So he couldn't on day one. We had to back time to a fence because he's just going nuts and just redirecting on his owner the whole time.
Fucking hell.
So we just backside him to a fence, and I said back time, so he's got no emotional connection to you. Just back time and walk away from him. He backside and walked away from him, and then he'd go back when he quietened down and go back and try and work with him. But
what's his food drive like?
It's good, yeah.
Oh, is it?
His food drive's really good. So we've got him now where we've got him like luring past dogs. We've got him getting focus past dogs.
Do you know what I'd quite like to do with a redirecting dog, which I've never had a dog that maybe has a good enough food drive to do so or had enough time, would be like back tie the dog, free shape a place command with a treat and train, like get someone completely out the picture. Yeah. And then overlay the e-collar on top of the free shape.
Right, yeah, cool, yeah.
And then just like back tie him, expose him to a road at a distance he can tolerate and handle comfortably with maybe an occasional reaction, but we're talking like 85% success rate. Right. And then just punish the reaction with negative reinforcement to the bed.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And then once he hits the bed, like pay him off the bed, just with everyone out of sight and just... But you'd have to do it, I think, for it to be successful, like a a few slots a day for a prolonged period of time.
Or paying him off the bed. So something that I've been looking into doing recently with reactive dogs, when you're saying using a treat and train, is conditioning the dog to the treat and train, so it's like, you know, reflexive to it. And then when we try and do counter conditioning, we've got by the stables that we work at, we've got this little lane that's down the side of the stables. Put a treat and train halfway down the lane, and as the dog walks and then catches first sight of a dog, beep, and it goes down the lane for counter conditioning. But with that one that you were saying, I would like to, if you were doing the placement bed, obviously you'd have the treat and train behind, away from the triggers. So when it comes to that, so you're just alleviating more pressure for the reward.
There's plenty to play with. It's just time frame, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going to try a couple of new things with this foster to adopt dog, just because of, like, it's not a 4-week board and train or a 6-week. There's no time limit. So
what are you going to try?
Bits and bobs like that. She's really, like, handler focused. Like, she's going to get clingy to absolutely everyone. So I'll bring the treat and train back in later on. I want to train her place and recall firstly. Just to fulfill her easier. So I can have her off lead and she can just have better bang for a buck per walk. I've only been walking her on lead to begin with. Something I'm a big thing for is introduce the e-collar early, because if the e-collar is introduced early, my dog can have a better quality of life. And because he's got a better quality of life, all the shit things I need to teach my dog, like loose lead walking, become a hell of a lot easier, because he's like, that's a pretty fair trade-off because I've just been off lead for like 2 hours, right? So e-collar in place early, place again with the e-collar in the house, because she gets funny around me moving around the house. And if I interact with someone else or one of my dogs, she doesn't get aggressive. She just like whines and moans and like rears up if I've got her on a back tie or whatever. So place, no, tap, back into the place. So that'll fix that issue. The recall is just so she can just have a better quality of life while she's spending time here. So when I do start counter conditioning and teaching her pressure things to deal with pressure, it'll be easier because she's just like, not so fucking pent up and wound up, right? And that's a big sell for that I give to clients for the e-collar as well. Like, all the shit things you want to fix will be so much easier to fix if your dog's spending a lot of time off lead, but because they're such a knobhead, they can't be off lead. So if we introduce an e-collar now, we can avoid that catch-22 that we're currently stuck in. And then most people just go like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, let's do that. Because it sounds great that I can walk my dog off lead, and then lo and behold, like, all these little things that they did have are fucking suddenly all gone anyway. So I wanted to use the treat and train to condition her to the place bed. And then just for different objects as well. She's environmentally really nervous. Not that nervous over dogs or people. But just like environmentally nervous. So treat and train, condition to place bed, e-collar overlaid, and then different surfaces. Like your wobble boards and your things like that. We've got like a big spool out there. Then I'll start putting the cans and balls on and things like that just to like test her. But I'll just do that incrementally. Thought about box work as well. Like, I think she's a dog that would really benefit with box work, but box feeding. I'm just not that versed in it. So if you'd ever want to do a module on box feeding for our online academy, we'll sure take you up on that. Are you still using clickers with pet clients?
Verbal, yes. More so.
I love a clicker. I think I fucking really like using a clicker, but
it
just takes up a couple of fingers that a client needs, right?
And if you're using an e-collar as well, I think it makes it a lot harder. So if you've got the finger clicker and you've got, I find that if I'm using the mini educator and I've got the finger clicker, it's like a certain way I have to hold it. I've got a picture of me doing it. I sent it to Greg at one point.
A little birdie told me that you actually wrote the finger clicker guide. Is this? Did you?
Yeah, it was a lot bigger than it is now. Yeah, they've
whittled it down.
Whittled it down a little bit.
It's like a Bible, was it?
yeah.
The saving cost on
took
paper.
Took me ages to do it. Yeah.
Did it?
Yeah. And then I got a couple of like.
What is it? Just how to charge a clicker, or?
Yeah, just a little bit of like it's how to charge the clicker, how to use it in training, how to teach behaviours in it. And then how to do like positive associations, like taking the dog out and like.
Are you credited in there or no?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So if I buy a mini educator,
if you buy the
one with
clicker.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, if you buy Finger Clicker, it has like an online
The
guide.
same company make it though, right?
Yeah, same company. Yeah,
E-Collar Technologies, is that them?
yeah. So there's like an online guide, and you like click the online guide, and it's all my literature, and then there's a video which isn't the best video, but there's a video on there. I did it a while back. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go check it out.
Yeah, no doubt.
Cool. We're gonna wrap it up there, mate. But thank you very much for coming on.
Sound.
Pleasure to speak to you as always. And
Yeah.
if you wouldn't mind giving us a tutorial on box feeding,
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
help us out.
Yeah, if we've got time today, we can do that.
Sound
Yeah.
awesome.